When Maya Sinclair took a job cleaning the Grand Caldwell estate, she never expected to find mysterious notes hidden throughout the mansion. Each unsigned message revealed that someone was watching her work, noticing the small moments of joy she found in bringing order to the empty rooms. What began as anonymous observations soon blossomed into a secret correspondence that would change both their lives forever. This is a story of love that transcends social boundaries, built on truth, forgiveness, and the courage to start again. Before we start this story, comment below from where you are watching us. The morning sun filtered through the massive windows of the Caldwell estate as Maya Sinclair wiped them clean. At 26, she had already lived through more hardship than most people twice her age, but that was behind her now. This job, cleaning this enormous mansion, was her fresh start. "Just keep your head down and do the work," she reminded herself, something she'd been saying since she first stepped through the grand entrance of the estate 3 months ago. Maya moved the cloth in circular motions across the glass. The estate sat on 10 acres of manicured grounds with gardens that seemed to stretch forever. It was peaceful here, quiet in a way her childhood home never was. There, silence meant danger. Someone was angry. Someone was coming. Here, silence was just silence. And she liked it that way. She hadn't met her employer yet. The estate manager, Mrs. Patterson, had hired her and handled all the paperwork. Maya knew his name, Damien Caldwell, and that he had recently taken over his father's architecture firm after the old man died. She saw his signature on her paychecks, but never his face. "He keeps to himself," Mrs. Patterson had explained during Maya's first day. "He's very busy with the company. You probably won't see much of him." That was fine with Maya. Rich people made her uncomfortable. They looked at you like you were invisible until they needed something. Then suddenly you existed. As she finished the last window in the east wing, Maya noticed the sunlight streaming through the clean glass. It cast a warm glow across the hardwood floor. She couldn't help but smile. There was something satisfying about making things clean, bringing order to spaces. Maya gathered her supplies and moved to the next room, a guest bedroom that no one ever used. The Caldwell estate had 20 rooms, and from what she could tell, Damien Caldwell only used about 3 of them: his bedroom, his study, and occasionally the kitchen. She dusted the nightstands and polished the antique dresser. When she bent to pick up her cleaning caddy, she noticed something white peeking out from beneath the bed. Maya reached for it and pulled out an envelope. It was sealed, with no stamp. On the front, written in neat handwriting, were the words, "To the maid in the garden room." Maya frowned. The garden room? That was what Mrs. Patterson called this guest room because it overlooked the rose garden. Was this meant for her? She turned the envelope over in her hands. She shouldn't open it. It wasn't addressed to Maya Sinclair. It was addressed to the maid, like she wasn't even a person with a name. But curiosity got the better of her. She tore open the envelope and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. "You wiped the dust off a windowsill and smiled at the light. You didn't know I was watching, but I think your smile cleaned more than the glass. DC." Maya read it twice, then laughed. Was this some kind of joke? DC had to be Damien Caldwell. Her boss was leaving her notes, watching her work. She should be creeped out. She should report this to Mrs. Patterson, but instead, she read the note again. There was something about the words that didn't feel threatening. They felt honest. Maya tucked the note into her pocket and continued with her work. But her mind kept returning to those words. Your smile cleaned more than the glass. What did that even mean? Damien Caldwell sat in his study, staring at the quarterly reports from Caldwell Architecture. The numbers were good. His father's company, his company now, was thriving. He should be pleased. Instead, he felt nothing. 6 months ago, when his father died suddenly of a heart attack, Damien had been thrust into the role of CEO. Frederick Caldwell had been a hard man to please and an even harder man to mourn. The business world called him brilliant. His employees called him demanding. Damien had other words for him, none of which he'd say at the funeral. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Mrs. Patterson entered, carrying a tray with coffee and a sandwich. "You missed lunch again, Mr. Caldwell," she said, setting the tray on his desk. "And dinner was 2 hours ago." "Thank you, Mrs. Patterson," Damien said. He couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten. "Is there anything else?" Mrs. Patterson hesitated. "The board meeting tomorrow has been rescheduled for next week," Damien finished. "I've already notified everyone." "Very good, sir." She turned to leave, then paused. "The new maid, Maya, has been doing excellent work. The East Wing hasn't looked this good in years." Damien nodded, his attention already back on the reports. "I'm glad to hear it." After Mrs. Patterson left, Damien pushed the papers aside and walked to the window. From here he could see part of the rose garden. His mother had loved those roses. She'd spent hours tending to them before the cancer took her away, when Damien was just 16. His father had wanted to tear out the garden after she died. "Waste of space," he'd called it. But Damien had fought him on it, one of the few battles he'd won against the old man. Damien rubbed his face. He was tired. He'd been tired for months. The company demanded everything from him, just as it had from his father. But unlike Frederick Caldwell, Damien wasn't sure he wanted to give his life to it. He thought about the note he'd left earlier that day. Had she found it? Had she read it? Or had she thrown it away, disturbed by her employer's strange behavior? He hadn't planned to write to her. It had just happened. He'd been walking past the garden room 3 days ago and seen her cleaning the windows. The way she'd smiled at the sunlight, it was so genuine, so unguarded. It had stirred something in him he thought was long dead. So he wrote the note, like a coward, instead of introducing himself properly. Damien turned back to his desk. He had work to do. The board was expecting a complete review of the Shanghai project by next week, and he'd barely started on it. But his mind kept drifting to the maid with the smile that could clean more than glass. The next day, Maya arrived at the estate early. She always did. The quiet morning hours were her favorite part of the day. She started in the kitchen, wiping down countertops and mopping the floors. Mrs. Patterson arrived as she was finishing up. "Good morning, Maya," the older woman said, setting her purse on the counter. "Mr. Caldwell has asked that you clean his study today. He'll be out at meetings until this evening." Maya nodded. Of course. She'd never been in Damien Caldwell's study before. It was always off limits while he was working, which seemed to be all the time. "The door will be unlocked," Mrs. Patterson continued. "Just don't move any of his papers. He's very particular about his workspace." An hour later, Maya stood outside the heavy oak door of the study. She took a deep breath and turned the handle. The room was larger than she expected, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves on 2 walls. A massive desk dominated the space, covered in neat stacks of papers and folders. Maya set to work, dusting the bookshelves first. The titles ranged from architecture and design to classic literature. She was surprised to see several poetry collections. When she moved to dust the desk, she was careful not to disturb any of the papers. A framed photo caught her eye, a woman in a garden, surrounded by roses. She was beautiful, with a warm smile that reached her eyes. Was this Damien's mother, or maybe a girlfriend? As Maya cleaned around the desk, she noticed a small trash can filled with crumpled papers. She emptied it into her garbage bag, but one of the balled-up papers fell out. Maya picked it up and was about to throw it away when she noticed her job title written on it. Maid. She shouldn't look. It wasn't her business. But after yesterday's note, Maya smoothed out the paper. It was a draft of the note she'd received, but longer, with several lines crossed out. She could make out phrases like "I've watched you work," and "your care for this empty house," before they were scratched through. So he had struggled with what to write to her. The thought made Damien Caldwell seem more human somehow. Maya finished cleaning the study and moved on to the upstairs hallway. As she dusted a side table near the laundry room, she spotted another envelope tucked behind a vase of fresh flowers. Her heart beat a little faster as she picked it up. Again, it was addressed simply, "To the maid with gentle hands." Maya opened it right away this time. "You hum when you're scared. You talk to the roses like they listen. I haven't spoken to anyone in months, but reading your silence made me want to. DC." Maya stood frozen in the hallway. How did he know she hummed when she was scared, or that she talked to the roses? She thought no one was ever around when she worked in the garden. The note should make her feel violated, watched. Instead, it made her feel seen, really seen. And that was something Maya hadn't felt in a very long time. That night, Maya sat in her small apartment, staring at the 2 notes from Damien Caldwell. She should tell Mrs. Patterson. This wasn't appropriate behavior from an employer, but the words kept pulling at something inside her. They weren't demanding or suggestive. They were observant, thoughtful even. Maya picked up a pen and a sheet of paper from her kitchen drawer. Before she could talk herself out of it, she wrote, "I talk to the roses because they never interrupt." She didn't sign it. She didn't need to. He would know who it was from. The next morning, Maya slipped her note under the door of Damien's study before starting her usual cleaning routine. She tried not to think about it as she worked, but her mind kept wandering back to those few words she'd written. Was it too personal? Too forward? When she reached the library in the West Wing, Maya found another envelope waiting for her, this time tucked between two books on a shelf she always dusted. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. "Thank you for writing back. The Roses are lucky to have such a respectful listener. Most people in my world talk endlessly, but say nothing worth hearing." Maya couldn't help but smile. She tucked the note into her pocket next to the others. For the next 2 weeks, this strange correspondence continued. Maya would find notes hidden throughout the house, in the laundry basket, behind picture frames, under vases. Each one showed that Damien had been watching her, noticing small details about how she worked and moved through the house. And each day, Maya would leave a short reply, never more than a sentence or two. She wrote about why she hummed, because silence meant danger in her childhood home. She wrote about how she'd always loved making things clean, because it was the one thing she could control growing up. She never saw Damien Caldwell in person. He was always in meetings or locked in his study when she was working. Sometimes she wondered if he deliberately avoided her, until one evening, when everything changed. Maya had stayed late to finish polishing the silver in the dining room. A storm had moved in and rain lashed against the windows. As she was gathering her things to leave, she heard something, faint notes from a piano. She followed the sound to the east hallway, to a room she'd never entered before. The door was slightly ajar, and through the crack she could see a grand piano, and sitting at it was a man she recognized from photos around the house, Damien Caldwell. He was playing something haunting and sad. His shoulders were hunched, his head bowed over the keys, and as Maya watched, she realized with a shock that he was crying, silent tears falling as his fingers moved across the piano. She must have made a sound, because suddenly Damien stopped playing and looked up. Their eyes met through the doorway. Maya froze, caught between fleeing and staying. Damien looked equally startled, quickly wiping at his face. "I'm sorry," Maya said, finding her voice. "I heard the music. I didn't mean to intrude." Damien stood up from the piano bench. "No, I thought everyone had gone home." There was an awkward silence. This was the first time they'd spoken face to face, yet they'd been sharing private thoughts for weeks. "Your playing is beautiful," Maya said finally. Damien looked down at the piano. "It helps me think, sometimes." Another silence stretched between them. "I should go," Maya said, taking a step back. "It's late." Damien nodded. "Of course. Good night, Maya." The sound of her name on his lips made her pause. He knew her name, of course he did. He was her employer. But somehow hearing him say it felt intimate after all those anonymous notes addressed to the Maid. "Good night, Mr. Caldwell," she replied, and turned to leave. "Maya!" he called after her. She looked back at him. "Thank you. For your notes." She gave him a small smile. "Thank you for yours." As Maya walked to her car in the rain, her heart was racing. The man behind the notes had a face now, a voice, and eyes that held more sadness than she'd expected. She drove home through the storm, wondering what would happen now that they'd finally met. Would the notes stop? Would he pretend nothing had happened? Or would something new begin? Something face-to-face instead of hidden in ink-stained envelopes? Maya didn't know. But for the first time in years, she found herself hoping for something more than just getting through another day. The morning after their encounter at the piano, Maya arrived at work with butterflies in her stomach. Would things be different now? Would Damien Caldwell speak to her again? Or would he go back to being the invisible employer? She started her morning routine as usual, cleaning the kitchen and dining room. No note waited for her in any of the usual hiding spots. Maya tried not to feel disappointed. After all, they'd actually spoken face-to-face now. Maybe the notes had just been his way of working up to that. Around noon, Maya was dusting in the library when Mrs. Patterson found her. "Maya, Mr. Caldwell has asked to see you in his study," the older woman said, her expression curious. Maya's heart skipped a beat. Did he say why? No, but he seemed different today, almost nervous. Mrs. Patterson shook her head. "In the 15 years I've worked for the Caldwells, I've never seen him like this." Maya set down her feather duster and smoothed her uniform, suddenly self-conscious. "I'll go right away." As she walked to Damien's study, Maya tried to calm her racing thoughts. What did he want? Was he going to fire her for intruding on his private moment last night? She knocked on the study door. "Come in," called Damien's voice. Maya entered to find him standing by the window, hands in his pockets. He turned when she came in, and Maya was struck again by how different he looked in person compared to the few photographs around the house. In the photos, he appeared stern and businesslike. In person, especially now, he seemed younger, less sure of himself. "How you wanted to see me, Mr. Caldwell?" Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. Yes, thank you for coming. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Please, sit down. Maya perched on the edge of the chair, hands folded in her lap. Damien sat not behind his desk, but in the chair next to hers. It felt less like boss and employee, more like two people having a conversation. I wanted to apologize, Damien began, for the notes. It was inappropriate of me to— No, Maya interrupted, then caught herself. I mean, you don't need to apologize. I didn't mind them. Damien looked surprised. You didn't? No, they were nice. No one's ever noticed things about me like that before. A small smile appeared on Damien's face. I've always been observant. My father called it wasting time, watching people instead of focusing on business. Your father sounds like a difficult man, Maya said before she could stop herself. Damien's smile faded. He was. Brilliant at business, terrible at everything else. He shook his head. I'm sorry. I didn't call you in here to talk about my father. Why did you call me in? Maya asked. Damien took a deep breath. I thought maybe we could start over. Properly. Without hiding behind notes. He extended his hand. I'm Damien Caldwell. Maya couldn't help but smile as she shook his hand. Maya Sinclair. It's nice to finally meet you, Maya Sinclair. His hand was warm around hers, and for a moment neither of them let go. Then Damien seemed to realize he was still holding her hand, and quickly released it. I was wondering, he said, looking slightly flustered, if you might join me for coffee sometime. Outside of work hours, of course, just to talk. Maya hesitated. This was crossing a line. He was her employer, but the connection she felt to him through those notes, and now sitting here face to face, it was something she hadn't felt in a long time, maybe ever. I'd like that, she said finally. Relief washed over Damien's face. Good. That's good. An awkward silence fell between them. I should get back to work, Maya said, standing up. Damien stood as well. Of course, thank you for understanding about the notes. Thank you for writing them, Maya replied. As she turned to leave, Damien spoke again. Maya, one more thing. She looked back at him. The woman in the photo on my desk, that's my mother. She passed away when I was 16. Maya nodded, touched that he'd share that with her. She has a kind smile. She did, Damien agreed. She would have liked you. Those words stayed with Maya all day as she finished her cleaning. They echoed in her mind as she drove home that evening. She would have liked you. Such a simple statement, but it felt like Damien had given her a precious gift. 2 days later, Maya sat across from Damien at a small coffee shop downtown. She'd suggested meeting here rather than somewhere fancy. She didn't own clothes for fancy places, and she wanted to feel comfortable. Damien seemed different outside the mansion. More relaxed, dressed in jeans and a simple button-down shirt instead of his usual suits. He still looked wealthy. His watch alone probably cost more than Maya's car, but less like the intimidating CEO of a global company. How long have you worked as a housekeeper? Damien asked after they'd ordered their coffees. About 5 years, Maya answered. I started cleaning houses to pay my way through community college. Then I found I was good at it, and it paid better than most jobs I could get with an associate's degree in general studies. Damien nodded. Mrs. Patterson says you're the best cleaner we've ever had. Maya felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. I like bringing order to things, making spaces feel peaceful. Is that why you talk to the roses? Damien asked, a small smile playing on his lips. For the peace. Maya laughed softly. Partly. And partly because growing up no one really listened to me, so I got used to talking to things that couldn't talk back. Plants, stuffed animals, the moon. She hadn't meant to share something so personal, but something about Damien made it easy to open up. What was your home like? Damien asked. Growing up, I mean. Maya took a sip of her coffee, considering how much to tell him. Chaotic. My mother had problems, drugs, bad boyfriends. We moved a lot whenever she couldn't pay rent or got into trouble. I'm sorry, Damien said, and she could tell he meant it. Maya shrugged. It made me strong, independent. She changed the subject. What about you? What was it like growing up in that huge house? Lonely, Damien admitted. After my mother died, it was just me and my father, and he was barely home. Always at the office. The house felt like a museum. Look but don't touch, don't make noise, don't mess anything up. Is that why you play the piano? To fill the silence? Damien looked surprised. I never thought about it that way, but yes, maybe so. He ran a finger around the rim of his coffee cup. My mother taught me to play. It's one of the few things I have left of her. They talked for nearly 2 hours, sharing bits and pieces of their lives. Maya learned that Damien had taken over the company reluctantly after his father's death, that he'd rather be designing buildings than running a business. Damien learned that Maya had put herself through school while working 3 jobs, that she'd left home at 17 and never looked back. When they finally said goodbye outside the coffee shop, there was a moment, just a brief one, where Maya thought Damien might kiss her, but he simply smiled and said, "I enjoyed this." "Me too," Maya replied. "Could we do it again sometime?" Damien asked, looking almost shy. Maya nodded. "I'd like that." As she drove home, Maya tried to make sense of what was happening. She was having coffee dates with her boss, her extremely wealthy, handsome boss who wrote her poetic notes and played sad songs on the piano. It felt like something from a movie, not real life, not her life, but it was real. And for the first time in a long time, Maya was excited about what tomorrow might bring. Over the next few weeks, Damien and Maya continued to meet outside of work, for coffee, for walks in the park, once for dinner at a casual restaurant Damien had never been to before, but Maya loved. At the mansion, they maintained a professional relationship. Maya did her job, and Damien worked in his study, but sometimes he would appear in a room she was cleaning, just to talk for a few minutes. And sometimes Maya would find a new note hidden for her to discover. The notes were different now, less observational, more personal. "Your laugh makes me want to be funny, which I've never been good at, but I'll keep trying. When you told me about the stars last night, I looked up at them after you left and saw them differently." Maya kept every note in a small box in her apartment. Sometimes at night, she would read through them all, marveling at how someone like Damien Caldwell could see so much in someone like her. One evening in late autumn, Damien invited Maya to dinner at the mansion. "I'll cook," he said when he called her. "Unless you don't trust my cooking, which would be fair, I'm not very experienced." Maya laughed. "I'm sure it will be delicious." When she arrived at the mansion that night, it felt strange to enter through the front door instead of the service entrance she used for work. Damien greeted her himself, leading her to the smaller of the estate's 2 dining rooms. The table was set for 2, with candles and a vase of roses from the garden. It looked like something from a magazine, except for the slightly burned smell coming from the kitchen. "I think dinner might be a bit overcooked," Damien admitted, looking embarrassed. Maya smiled. "I can help. I'm a pretty good cook." Together they salvaged what they could of Damien's attempt at pasta carbonara. Working side by side in the kitchen, they laughed as Damien confessed he'd never actually cooked a meal from scratch before. "Mrs. Patterson usually arranges for meals to be delivered," he explained, as Maya showed him how to properly drain pasta. "Or I eat at restaurants." "Well, cooking is a useful skill," Maya said. "Everyone should know how to make at least a few basic meals." "Will you teach me?" Damien asked, standing close beside her at the stove. Maya looked up at him, caught by the warmth in his eyes. "I could do that." They ate in the dining room, the candles burning low as they talked and laughed. After dinner, Damien gave Maya a tour of parts of the mansion she'd never seen: the wine cellar, the home theater, the small art gallery featuring paintings collected by his mother. She loved art, Damien explained, as they stood before a landscape of rolling hills at sunset. She wanted to be a painter herself, but her parents insisted she go to business school. That's where she met my father. "Was it a happy marriage?" Maya asked. Damien was quiet for a moment. "I think it was at first, but my father was always working, building his company, and my mother was delicate. She needed more than he could give her." In the piano room, Maya asked Damien to play for her. He hesitated, then sat at the bench and began a soft, gentle melody. "Debussy," he said as his fingers moved across the keys. "My mother's favorite." Maya stood beside the piano, watching his hands, his face. There was such emotion in the way he played, like the music was coming from somewhere deep inside him. When he finished, Maya sat beside him on the bench. "That was beautiful. Thank you for listening," Damien said softly. They were sitting close, their shoulders touching. "Damien," Maya began, not sure what she wanted to say. He turned to face her, and slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to, he leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle, questioning. Maya found herself kissing him back, her hand coming up to rest against his cheek. When they broke apart, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since I first saw you smile at the sunlight." "I'm glad you finally did," Maya whispered. They kissed again, longer this time. Then Damien pulled back slightly. "Maya, I need to tell you something." She looked at him, concerned by the serious tone in his voice. "What is it? This thing between us. It's not just... He took a deep breath. "I'm falling in love with you." And that terrifies me because I've never felt this way before, and I don't know what to do with it. Maya's heart raced at his words. It terrifies me too, she admitted. This doesn't happen to people like me. What do you mean, people like you? Damien asked, frowning. People who clean houses for a living. People who grew up with nothing. People who... Damien stopped her with another kiss. Don't, he said when he pulled away. Don't put yourself in a box like that. You're amazing, Maya. Everything about you, your strength, your kindness, the way you see beauty in simple things, that's what I'm falling in love with. Tears filled Maya's eyes. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever seen her the way Damien did. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, Damien assured her. I just wanted you to know how I feel. They sat together on the piano bench, holding hands, until the grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight. I should go, Maya said reluctantly. Damien nodded. I'll walk you to your car. Outside, the night air was cool. Stars glittered overhead. Damien kept hold of Maya's hand as they walked down the driveway to where her car was parked. When can I see you again? He asked. I'll be here tomorrow. To clean, Maya reminded him with a small smile. Damien laughed. Right, but I meant... I know what you meant, Maya said. How about dinner tomorrow night? I'll cook this time. I'd like that. He kissed her one more time before opening her car door for her. As Maya drove home, she felt like she was floating. Damien Caldwell was falling in love with her. It seemed impossible, like something from a dream, but the warmth of his lips still lingered on hers, and his words echoed in her mind. For the first time in her life, Maya allowed herself to hope for something more than just survival, something that felt a lot like happiness. The next morning, Maya arrived at the mansion at her usual time. She tried to act normally, to focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting to the night before. Damien's kisses, his confession, the promise of dinner tonight. She was dusting in the library when Mrs. Patterson found her. Maya, there's someone here to see Mr. Caldwell. A woman. She says she's his fiancée. Maya froze. His what? I was surprised too, Mrs. Patterson said, looking troubled. Mr. Caldwell has never mentioned being engaged. But this woman, Elise Harrington, she has a key to the house. She says she's been in Europe for the past 6 months working on a project, and that she and Mr. Caldwell have been engaged for a year. Maya felt sick. Had everything Damien told her been a lie? Had his sweet notes, his gentle kisses all been part of some game? I thought you should know, Mrs. Patterson continued, since you and Mr. Caldwell seem to have become friendly recently. Thank you, Maya managed to say. Where is she now? In the foyer. Mr. Caldwell is in a video conference, but she insisted on waiting for him. Maya nodded, trying to keep her expression neutral. Inside, she felt like she was breaking apart. I'll just continue with my work, she said. Mrs. Patterson gave her a sympathetic look before leaving the library. Maya stood there, feather duster in hand, trying to process what she'd just heard. Damien was engaged. He had a fiancée. While he was kissing Maya, telling her he was falling in love with her, he was promised to another woman. Maya put down the duster and walked out of the library. She had to see this woman for herself, had to know if it was true. In the foyer, a tall, elegant blonde woman was pacing back and forth talking on her phone. She was beautiful, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than Maya made in a month. She looked like she belonged in this mansion, in a way Maya never would. No, I'm at the house now, the woman was saying into her phone. Damien's in a meeting. Yes, I surprised him. After 6 months in Milan, I thought he deserved a surprise. Maya backed away silently, her heart breaking with every step. It was true. Damien had lied to her. Or if not lied directly, he'd hidden the truth, that he was engaged to this sophisticated, beautiful woman who was clearly from his world. Maya returned to the library and gathered her cleaning supplies. She couldn't stay here, couldn't face Damien with his fiancée by his side. She had to leave. She found Mrs. Patterson in the kitchen. I'm not feeling well, Maya said, which wasn't a lie. She felt physically ill. I need to go home. Mrs. Patterson looked concerned. Of course, dear, take all the time you need. Please tell Mr. Caldwell. Maya began, then stopped. What could she possibly say? Never mind, I'll be back tomorrow. She wasn't sure if that was true either, but she couldn't quit this job without finding another one first. She needed the money too much. As Maya drove away from the mansion, tears blurred her vision. She'd been so foolish, a rich, handsome man like Damien Caldwell falling for someone like her. She should have known it was too good to be true. The notes, the conversations, the kisses, had any of it been real? Or was she just a distraction while his fiancée was away? Maya pulled over to the side of the road, unable to drive through her tears. She'd allowed herself to hope, to dream, and now reality had come crashing back, as it always did. She thought of all the notes from Damien, saved in her special box at home. She should burn them all, forget they ever existed, forget he ever existed, except as her employer. But even as she thought it, Maya knew she couldn't forget. For a brief, shining moment, Damien Caldwell had made her feel special, seen, valued. No matter what happened next, she would always have that. Maya wiped her eyes and pulled back onto the road. She would go home, cry until she had no tears left, and then figure out what to do, whether to confront Damien or to pretend nothing had happened between them, or to find a new job and never see him again. One thing was certain, the dream was over, and Maya Sinclair had learned long ago how to survive when dreams died. Maya didn't go to work the next day. She called Mrs. Patterson and said she had the flu. It wasn't entirely a lie. She felt sick to her stomach, her head pounded, and her whole body ached with the pain of betrayal. She spent the day in bed, alternating between crying and staring blankly at the ceiling. Her phone rang several times, Damien calling, but she didn't answer. What could he possibly say that would make this better? Around noon, a text message came through. "Maya, please talk to me. It's not what you think. I need to explain. Damien." She almost threw her phone across the room. Not what she thought. A woman with a key to his house had shown up claiming to be his fiancée. What else could it be? By evening, Damien had called 12 times and sent 8 text messages. The last one read, "If you don't answer, I'm coming to your apartment. Please, Maya." That got her attention. She didn't want him here in her small, shabby apartment. It would just remind her how different their worlds were. She texted back, "Don't come. I'll talk to you tomorrow at the mansion." His reply was immediate. "Thank you. I'll be in my study all day." Maya barely slept that night. She kept picturing the blonde woman in the foyer, so elegant and poised, everything Maya wasn't. Everything Maya could never be. When morning came, Maya dragged herself out of bed and got ready for work. She wore her usual cleaning uniform, even though it felt like armor now, a reminder that she was just the maid, nothing more. At the mansion, Maya went straight to Damien's study. She didn't bother knocking. She opened the door and found him sitting at his desk, looking like he hadn't slept either. His hair was a mess, his eyes bloodshot. He stood up immediately. "Maya, is it true?" she interrupted. "Are you engaged?" Damien's face fell. "No, at least not anymore." Maya crossed her arms. "Explain." "Elise and I were engaged," Damien said, moving around the desk to stand in front of her. "A year ago. It was arranged by our families. Her father owns Harrington Construction, one of our biggest partners. An arranged engagement? What century is this?" Maya couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. "It wasn't forced," Damien clarified. "Just encouraged, strongly encouraged. My father was still alive then, and he was determined to see the companies linked through marriage." "And you went along with it?" Damien ran a hand through his hair. "I'd known Elise since college. She's smart, ambitious. It made sense on paper, and I was used to doing what my father wanted." "So what happened?" 6 months ago, Elise got offered a position overseeing a project in Milan. She wanted to take it. I supported her decision. It was an amazing opportunity. The day before she left, we had a long talk. We both admitted we weren't in love, that we were just going through the motions to please our families. And we agreed to end the engagement, quietly. We decided to wait until she returned from Italy to make it public, to avoid business complications with the Milan project. Maya tried to process this. "So, you're not engaged anymore?" "No," Damien said firmly. "I haven't been for 6 months." "Then why does she have a key to your house? Why did she tell Mrs. Patterson she's your fiancé?" Damien sighed. "I forgot to ask for the key back. And as for what she told Mrs. Patterson, I don't know. Maybe she's hoping we can pick up where we left off." "Can you?" Maya asked, hating how vulnerable she sounded. Damien stepped closer to her. "No, because I meant what I said the other night. I'm falling in love with you, Maya. Only you." Maya wanted to believe him, but doubt still clouded her mind. "Did you tell her about us?" Damien hesitated. "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first, to explain. After you left yesterday, Elise and I argued. She was upset that I wasn't more excited to see her. I told her I'd meet her for lunch today to talk. To tell her about us," Maya pressed. "Yes," Damien confirmed. "To make it clear that whatever she might be hoping for, it's not going to happen." Maya felt tears threatening again. "How do I know you're telling the truth? That this isn't just some game to you?" "Look at me, Maya," Damien said softly. When she raised her eyes to his, he continued, "I've never played games with you. Every word in every note was true. Every moment we've shared has been real. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I was going to leave this for you to find today, before I knew about Elise showing up. Maya took the note with trembling hands and unfolded it. Your hands are gentle, but your spirit is strong. You've rebuilt yourself from broken pieces. I think you could teach me how to do the same. I love you for who you are, not who I wish you to be. A tear slipped down Maya's cheek. The words touched something deep inside her, the part that had always felt unworthy of love. I need time, she said, refolding the note. To think. Damien nodded. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. Maya turned to leave, then paused at the door. So what will you tell her? Elise? The truth, Damien said simply, that I found someone who makes me feel more alive than I've ever felt. Someone real. Maya nodded once, then left the study. She spent the day cleaning, trying to focus on her work instead of the turmoil in her heart. She didn't see Damien again. He left for his lunch with Elise and didn't return to the mansion while Maya was still there. As she was leaving for the day, Mrs. Patterson stopped her. Maya, are you all right? You seem upset. Maya forced a smile. I'm fine, just tired. Mrs. Patterson didn't look convinced. You know, I've worked for the Caldwell family for a long time. I watched Damien grow up. He was always such a serious child, especially after his mother died. Maya wasn't sure why Mrs. Patterson was telling her this. What I'm trying to say, the older woman continued, is that I've never seen him smile the way he does when he talks about you, not even with Elise. Maya felt a flicker of hope. You knew about his engagement? Of course, though I never thought it would last. They looked good together in photographs, but there was no spark. Not like what? Maya prompted, when Mrs. Patterson trailed off. Not like what I see between you two, Mrs. Patterson finished. Just something to think about. Maya did think about it, all the way home and late into the night. She thought about Damien's explanation, about the note he'd written before Elise arrived, about Mrs. Patterson's observations. Could she trust him? Did she want to? The answer came to her as she was falling asleep. Yes, she wanted to trust him. She wanted to believe in the connection they'd formed, but she was still scared. Scared of being hurt, scared of being just a passing fancy for a wealthy man, scared of hoping for too much. The next morning, Maya arrived at the mansion to find Damien waiting for her in the kitchen. Hi, he said, looking nervous. Hi, she replied, setting down her purse. I told Elise everything, Damien said. About us, about how I feel. How did she take it? Maya asked. Not well at first. She was angry, hurt, but eventually she admitted she'd been seeing someone in Milan too, an Italian architect. He shrugged. I think we both knew it was over long before yesterday. Maya nodded, absorbing this. Did you get the key back? Damien smiled slightly. Yes, and I changed the locks just to be sure. They stood in silence for a moment, the kitchen island between them. Maya, Damien finally said, I understand if you need more time, but I want you to know I'm serious about this. About us. Maya took a deep breath. I believe you. But Damien, we come from such different worlds. I clean houses for a living. You own a global company. How could this possibly work? Because what matters isn't what we do or where we come from, Damien insisted. It's who we are, and who we are together. He came around the island to stand in front of her. When I'm with you, I don't feel like the CEO of Caldwell Architecture or Frederick Caldwell's son. I just feel like me, the real me, and that's something I've never had with anyone else. Maya felt tears welling up again. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared this is all going to disappear. Damien gently took her hands in his. I can't promise you everything will be perfect, but I can promise I'll never lie to you. I'll never hide things from you, and I'll never stop trying to deserve you. Maya looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. Slowly she nodded. Okay, okay, Damien repeated, looking hopeful. Let's try, Maya said. Together. Damien's smile was like sunrise breaking across his face. He pulled her into his arms and held her close. Maya felt something settle in her chest. Not quite peace, not yet, but something close to it. A willingness to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this happiness. Over the next few weeks, Maya and Damien cautiously rebuilt what Elise's appearance had shaken. They continued to see each other outside work hours, getting to know each other more deeply. Damien started joining Maya during her lunch breaks, sometimes bringing food to share, sometimes just sitting with her while she ate. The notes continued too, hidden in places only Maya would find. But now they often contained everyday messages mixed with the poetic ones. Don't forget I have that dinner meeting tonight, or can you teach me how to make that pasta dish again? It was during one of their cooking lessons in Damien's kitchen that he first brought up the subject of Maya's job. Have you ever thought about doing something else? He asked as he chopped vegetables under her guidance. Not that there's anything wrong with cleaning, he added quickly. You're amazing at it. I just wonder if there's something else you're passionate about. Maya considered the question. No one had ever asked her that before. I always wanted to work with plants, she admitted. I took some horticulture classes at community college. I loved it. Is that why you talk to the roses? Damien asked with a smile. Probably, Maya laughed. Plants make sense to me. They need simple things, light, water, care, and they give so much back. Damien was quiet for a moment, focused on his chopping. Then he said, You know, the garden here has been neglected since my mother died. The groundskeepers maintain it, but no one really loves it. Maya looked at him. What are you suggesting? Nothing yet, Damien said. Just thinking out loud. The subject didn't come up again until the following week. Maya was cleaning windows in the sunroom when Damien found her. I have a proposition for you, he said. A professional one, he clarified when she raised an eyebrow. I'm listening, Maya said, setting down her cloth. I'd like to restore my mother's gardens to what they used to be, maybe even expand them, and I'd like you to oversee the project. Maya stared at him. Me? But I'm not a professional gardener. No, but you understand plants. You care about them, and you could work with professional landscapers to develop your skills. Damien looked excited now. The estate has always had a head gardener position. It's been vacant since my mother died. I'd like you to fill it. Are you offering me a job because we're involved? Maya asked carefully. Damien shook his head. I'm offering you a job because you're qualified and passionate. Our relationship is separate. What about my cleaning duties? We'd hire someone else for those. You'd be focused entirely on the gardens. Maya walked to the window, looking out at the grounds. The rose garden was still beautiful, but she could see the potential for so much more. Would I get to choose what to plant? She asked. Absolutely, it would be your project. Maya turned back to him. And the pay? More than you make now, Damien said, with benefits. It was tempting, so tempting, to work outside in the sunshine, to create something beautiful, to use knowledge she'd gained but never had a chance to apply. I need to think about it, she said finally. Damien nodded. Of course, take all the time you need. But before Maya could make a decision, something happened that changed everything. 3 days later, Maya arrived at the mansion to find police cars in the driveway. Her heart raced as she parked her car and hurried to the front door. Mrs. Patterson met her on the porch, looking pale. What happened? Maya asked, fear gripping her. There was a break-in last night, Mrs. Patterson explained. Someone got in through the east wing window. Was anyone hurt? Is Damien okay? Mr. Caldwell is fine. He wasn't home. He had a late meeting in the city and stayed at his apartment there. Relief washed over Maya. What did they take? That's the strange thing, Mrs. Patterson said. They went straight to the library and took only one thing. A first-edition book that belonged to Mr. Caldwell's mother. It had sentimental value, but wasn't particularly valuable. Maya frowned. That's odd. Nothing else? No electronics or valuables? Nothing. The police think it might have been targeted. Someone who knew the house and knew what they were looking for. A chill ran down Maya's spine. Where's Damien now? In the library with the police. They're dusting for fingerprints. Maya went to find him. The library was a mess, with drawers pulled open and books scattered on the floor. Damien stood in the center of it all, talking to a detective. When he saw Maya, he excused himself and came to her. Are you okay? She asked immediately. I'm fine, he assured her. Just confused. Why would someone break in just to steal one book? Mrs. Patterson said it was your mother's. Damien nodded. A first edition of The Secret Garden. It was her favorite. She used to read it to me when I was a child. Do the police have any leads? Not yet. The security cameras were disabled, which suggests whoever did this knew the system. Damien ran a hand through his hair. The detective thinks it might be someone with a personal connection. Maya felt uneasy. Like who? Before Damien could answer, his phone rang. He checked the screen. It's the office. I need to take this. He squeezed her hand before stepping away to answer the call. Maya began picking up books from the floor, trying to restore some order to the chaos. As she placed a volume back on the shelf, she noticed something tucked between 2 large art books. An envelope. Her heart skipped a beat. It looked like one of Damien's notes. But when she pulled it out, she saw it wasn't addressed in his handwriting. It simply said, Damien, in block letters. She should give it to him right away, but something made her hesitate. This didn't feel like the other notes they'd shared. There was something ominous about it. Maya glanced over to where Damien was still on his phone call, his back to her. Slowly, she opened the envelope and pulled out the single sheet of paper inside. I know what your father did. I know what you're hiding. Pay $500,000, or everyone will know too. Instructions to follow. Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Blackmail? What was this about? What had Damien's father done? And what was Damien hiding? She quickly put the note back in the envelope and slipped it into her pocket, just as Damien finished his call and walked back to her. Sorry about that, he said. Crisis at the Shanghai project. No problem, Maya replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Is everything okay? Nothing I can't handle. He looked around at the library. What a mess. I hate the idea that someone was in here touching my mother's things. Maya nodded, the envelope feeling like it was burning a hole in her pocket. Should she show it to him? Or to the police? Or should she wait and ask Damien about it privately? Damien, she began hesitantly, is there anything you haven't told me? About your father, maybe? Damien looked surprised by the question. What do you mean? I don't know. Just, you never talk much about him, except to say he was difficult. A shadow passed over Damien's face. There's not much else to say. He was a businessman first and a father second. Or third, or fourth. He shrugged. Why do you ask? Maya couldn't bring herself to mention the note. Not yet. Not until she understood more. Just curious, with all this happening, it made me realize there's still a lot about your past I don't know. Damien's expression softened. You can ask me anything, Maya. I have no secrets from you. But the note in her pocket suggested otherwise. What was Damien hiding? And why was someone trying to blackmail him? I should get to work, Maya said, avoiding his eyes. The rest of the house still needs cleaning. Of course, Damien said, though he looked slightly puzzled by her sudden shift in mood. We'll talk later. Maya nodded and left the library, her mind racing. For the rest of the day, she went through the motions of cleaning, but her thoughts were on the blackmail note. Should she confront Damien about it? Show it to the police or try to find out more on her own? By the end of her shift, Maya had made a decision. She would do some investigating herself before bringing the note to Damien. If someone was threatening him, she wanted to understand why. When she got home that evening, Maya sat at her small kitchen table and read the note again. I know what your father did. What had Frederick Caldwell done that was worth $500,000 to keep quiet? Maya opened her laptop and began searching for information about Frederick Caldwell and any scandals or controversies he might have been involved in. There were plenty of articles about his business success, his aggressive acquisition strategies, his reputation as a tough negotiator, but nothing scandalous enough to warrant blackmail. Then Maya remembered something Damien had mentioned once, that his father had started the company with very little, building it from the ground up. She searched for information about the early days of Caldwell architecture. An hour later, she found something interesting. 30 years ago, when the company was just getting started, Frederick Caldwell had partnered with another young architect, James Sullivan. They had worked together for 3 years until Sullivan suddenly left the company. After that, Caldwell Architecture took off, becoming the global firm it was today. What had happened to James Sullivan? Maya searched for more information and found only a few mentions of him in old newspaper articles. He'd started a small architecture firm of his own after leaving Caldwell, but it had never achieved much success. He'd died 15 years ago. It wasn't much to go on, but it was a start. Maya made notes of what she'd found, planning to dig deeper tomorrow. She was about to close her laptop when an email notification popped up. It was from Damien. Dinner tomorrow night? I have something important to ask you. Maya stared at the message. What did he want to ask her? And how could she sit across from him at dinner, knowing she was hiding the blackmail note from him? She closed her laptop without replying. She needed time to think, to figure out what to do next. But one thing was certain. The peace and happiness she'd begun to find with Damien was now threatened by whatever secrets lurked in the Caldwell family's past, and Maya was determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant risking her newfound love. Maya spent a restless night, the blackmail note weighing heavily on her mind. By morning, she'd made a decision. Before confronting Damien, she needed more information about James Sullivan, the architect who had worked with Frederick Caldwell in the early days of the company. She called Mrs. Patterson and said she'd be late for work, a doctor's appointment, she claimed. Instead, she drove to the public library downtown. The library kept archives of local newspapers going back decades, and Maya hoped to find something there that wasn't available online. The librarian helped her access the digital archives, and Maya spent the next 2 hours searching for any mention of James Sullivan and Frederick Caldwell together. Finally, she found what she was looking for, a small article from 32 years ago announcing the formation of Caldwell and Sullivan Architecture, with a photo of the two young men shaking hands in front of their first office. The article described them as promising young architects with innovative ideas. Frederick Caldwell was quoted saying, "James Sullivan is the visionary, I'm just the businessman. Together we'll change the skyline of this city." Maya frowned. Frederick Caldwell had given his partner credit for the creative vision. That didn't sound like the ruthless businessman Damien had described. She kept searching and found more articles tracking the early success of the firm. They had won several small projects, then a major commission for a downtown office building called The Pinnacle. The design had been praised as revolutionary and forward-thinking. Then, abruptly, the partnership ended. Maya found a tiny notice in the business section. James Sullivan leaves Caldwell and Sullivan to pursue independent projects. The firm will continue as Caldwell Architecture. No explanation, no quotes from either man, just a simple statement of fact. The Pinnacle project had continued under Frederick Caldwell's leadership and had become the building that launched his company to success. All mention of James Sullivan disappeared from articles about the project. Maya searched for information about Sullivan after the split. He had started a small firm, as she'd discovered online, but had never achieved significant success. There were a few mentions of small projects, houses, a local restaurant, a community center, but nothing on the scale of what Caldwell Architecture was doing. Then Maya found an obituary from 15 years ago. James Sullivan had died of a heart attack at age 52, leaving behind a wife, Caroline, and a daughter, Rachel. Maya wrote down the names. If anyone knew what had happened between Sullivan and Frederick Caldwell, it would be Sullivan's family. A quick online search gave her an address for Caroline Sullivan. She still lived in the city, in a modest neighborhood across town. Maya glanced at her watch. If she hurried, she could go there now. 30 minutes later, Maya stood on the porch of a small, well-kept bungalow, gathering her courage before ringing the doorbell. What would she say? How could she explain why she was here? Before she could decide, the door opened. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes looked at her questioningly. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Mrs. Sullivan," Maya said. "Caroline Sullivan?" "Yes, that's me." Maya took a deep breath. "My name is Maya Sinclair. I work at the Caldwell estate. I'm trying to understand something about Frederick Caldwell and your husband's history together." Caroline Sullivan's expression changed, hardening slightly. "Why? What's this about?" "It's complicated," Maya admitted. "But I think someone is trying to use that history to blackmail Damien Caldwell, Frederick's son." Caroline looked surprised. "Blackmail? Come in, please." She led Maya to a small living room filled with family photos. Maya noticed several of a man she recognized from the newspaper archives, James Sullivan. He had a warm smile that reminded her of his wife's. "What exactly do you think happened between Frederick and my husband?" Caroline asked as they sat down. Maya hesitated. "I don't know. That's why I'm here. I found articles about their partnership, how it suddenly ended after they got the Pinnacle project. Then Frederick took all the credit, and your husband's career never really took off." Caroline nodded slowly. "That's the short version, yes?" "What really happened?" Maya asked gently. Caroline sighed. "James designed the Pinnacle. Every inch of it. It was his masterpiece, his vision. Frederick was the businessman. He got the financing, handled the clients. But the design was all James. So what went wrong? Frederick wanted changes to cut costs, cheaper materials, simpler design elements. James refused. They fought about it for weeks. Then one day, Frederick came to James with papers dissolving their partnership. He offered James a buyout, a small amount of money to walk away. "And your husband took it?" Maya asked, surprised. "He didn't want to," Caroline said. But Frederick had put a clause in their partnership agreement, giving him final say on all business decisions. James hadn't read the fine print. He trusted Frederick. He had no choice but to take the money and leave. "But the design was his," Maya protested. "Couldn't he have fought for credit at least?" Caroline shook her head. The agreement he signed gave Frederick ownership of all designs created during their partnership. James consulted lawyers, but they said he had no case. She looked down at her hands. It broke him, not just losing the project, but the betrayal by someone he considered a friend. Maya felt sick. So this was what the blackmailer knew, that Frederick Caldwell had essentially stolen his partner's design, the one that made his company famous. Did your husband ever confront Frederick? Maya asked. Once, years later, Caroline said. The Pinnacle had won all these awards. Frederick was being celebrated as a visionary architect. James went to his office, demanded that Frederick at least acknowledge his contribution privately. Frederick had him thrown out by security. I'm so sorry, Maya said softly. Caroline looked at her with curious eyes. You said you work at the Caldwell estate. For Damien. Maya nodded. Yes. What's he like? Is he like his father? The question caught Maya off guard. No, she said after a moment. He's different, kinder, more honest. You sound like you know him well, Caroline observed. Maya felt her cheeks warm. We've become close. Understanding dawned in Caroline's eyes. I see. And now you're worried about how this blackmail will affect him? Yes. Damien doesn't know about the note yet. I found it, and I wanted to understand what it was about before I told him. Caroline was quiet for a moment. My daughter, Rachel, she was always bitter about what happened to her father. She never forgave Frederick Caldwell, even after he died. She always said someday the truth would come out. A chill ran down Maya's spine. Where is your daughter now, Mrs. Sullivan? She's an architect too, works for a firm downtown. Brilliant like her father, but angry. She's carried that anger for a long time. Maya stood up. Thank you for talking to me. You've been very helpful. As she was leaving, Caroline called after her. Tell Damien. Tell him not all debts can be paid with money. Maya drove straight to the mansion, her mind racing. Could Rachel Sullivan be behind the blackmail? It made sense. She would know about her father's history with Frederick Caldwell, would have access to architectural knowledge to bypass the security system, would know the layout of the mansion if she'd studied her father's original partner's work. But why now? Frederick had been dead for 6 months. Why target Damien after all this time? When Maya arrived at the mansion, Mrs. Patterson informed her that Damien was in a meeting in his study and had asked not to be disturbed. Is it about the break-in? Maya asked. I believe so, Mrs. Patterson replied. The police detective is with him. Maya hesitated. She should wait until the detective left before talking to Damien. But what if the police were already looking at Rachel Sullivan? What if they arrested her before Damien understood the whole story? I need to speak with him, Maya said. It's important. Mrs. Patterson looked surprised but nodded. I'll let him know you're here. A few minutes later, Maya was shown into the study. Damien sat behind his desk, looking tired. Across from him was a detective in a rumpled suit taking notes. Maya, Damien said, standing up, is everything all right? I need to talk to you, she said, about the break-in. The detective looked up with interest. Do you have information about the case, Ms. Sinclair? Maya supplied. Maya Sinclair. And yes, I think I might. She pulled the blackmail note from her purse and handed it to Damien. I found this in the library yesterday, hidden on a bookshelf. Damien read it, his face paling. What is this? What is my father supposed to have done? I think I know, Maya said. She turned to the detective. Have you looked into Rachel Sullivan as a suspect? The detective frowned. Sullivan? No. Should I have? Maya explained what she'd learned from Caroline Sullivan about the partnership between Frederick Caldwell and James Sullivan, how Frederick had pushed James out and taken credit for his design of the Pinnacle. The Sullivan family has nursed this grievance for decades, Maya finished, and Rachel Sullivan is an architect. She would know how to get into the mansion, how to disable the security system. The detective was taking notes rapidly. This is very helpful, Ms. Sinclair. I'll look into Rachel Sullivan right away. He stood and gathered his things. Mr. Caldwell, we'll be in touch. After the detective left, Damien sat heavily in his chair, staring at the blackmail note. I had no idea, he said quietly. My father never mentioned James Sullivan, never said the Pinnacle was anyone's design but his own. Maya sat across from him. Did you know your father had a partner when he started the company? Damien shook his head. No. He always talked about building the company from nothing, through his own vision and hard work. He looked up at Maya, his eyes troubled. All these years, he took credit for another man's work. The building that made our company famous wasn't even his design. It doesn't change who you are, Maya said gently. Doesn't it? Damien stood and walked to the window. Everything I have, this house, the company, my whole life, it's built on a lie, on something my father stole. You didn't know, Maya insisted. You aren't responsible for what he did. But I benefited from it, Damien said bitterly. Every privilege I've had came from that initial success. Success that should have been James Sullivan's. Maya got up and went to him, placing a hand on his arm. What will you do now? Damien looked down at the blackmail note. Not this. I won't pay to keep the truth hidden. It's been hidden for too long already. He turned to face Maya. I need to make this right somehow. Before Maya could respond, Damien's phone rang. It was the detective calling with news. Rachel Sullivan had been brought in for questioning and had admitted to the break-in. She'd taken the book, her father's favorite, as a symbolic gesture. The blackmail had been a last-minute idea, born of seeing how wealthy the Caldwells had become, while her family struggled. Will you press charges? The detective asked. Damien hesitated, looking at Maya. She could see the conflict in his eyes. Not yet, Damien finally said. I'd like to talk to her first. After hanging up, Damien said, I need to see her, to understand. I'll go with you, Maya offered. Damien took her hand, gratitude in his eyes. Thank you. At the police station, Rachel Sullivan sat in an interview room, defiant despite her situation. She was in her 30s, with her father's warm eyes, though they were now hard with anger. You wanted to talk, she said when Damien and Maya entered. So talk. I want to understand, Damien said, sitting across from her. Why now? My father has been dead for 6 months. Rachel's jaw tightened. Because now you're getting all the accolades. Damien Caldwell, the brilliant new CEO, following in his father's footsteps. I saw your interview in Architecture today, talking about your father's legacy, his visionary design of the pinnacle. It was all I could take. I didn't know, Damien said simply. About your father, about what mine did, I'm sorry. Rachel looked surprised, then suspicious. Sorry doesn't change anything. Your family has been living off my father's genius for 30 years. He died thinking he was a failure while Frederick Caldwell was celebrated as a genius. You're right, Damien acknowledged, and I can't change the past, but I can try to make amends now. How? By paying me off like your father did to mine? No, Damien said firmly, by telling the truth, publicly. Both Rachel and Maya looked at him in shock. What do you mean? Rachel asked. I mean, I'll issue a statement acknowledging that James Sullivan was the true designer of the pinnacle. I'll make sure the record is corrected in all official documentation about the building, and I'll establish a scholarship in his name at the architectural school downtown. Rachel stared at him, speechless. I can't undo what my father did, Damien continued, but I can make sure your father gets the recognition he deserved. Why would you do that? Rachel asked. It could damage your company's reputation. Because it's the right thing to do, Damien said simply. Rachel looked between Damien and Maya, her anger beginning to fade. And the charges? The break-in? I won't press charges if you return the book, Damien said. It meant a lot to my mother. She had nothing to do with what happened between our fathers. Rachel nodded slowly. It's at my apartment. I can take you there. As they left the police station, Maya squeezed Damien's hand. You're doing the right thing. I know, he said. I just wish I'd known sooner. All these years my father's legacy has been hanging over me. Now I understand why I've never felt comfortable with it. This is your chance to create your own legacy, Maya told him. One based on truth and fairness. Damien looked at her with such tenderness that Maya's heart ached. You've changed my life, you know. Not just with this, but with everything. You saw the real me when I was hiding behind those notes, too afraid to show my face. We saw each other, Maya corrected him, and that's why this works. In the weeks that followed, Damien kept his promise. He issued a public statement acknowledging James Sullivan as the true designer of the pinnacle. He established a scholarship in Sullivan's name and invited Caroline and Rachel to the ceremony announcing it. The business world was shocked. Some criticized Damien for tarnishing his father's legacy. Others praised his integrity. Caldwell Architecture weathered the storm, perhaps stronger for having faced the truth. Through it all, Maya stood by Damien's side. She had accepted his offer to become the estate's head gardener and spent her days bringing the gardens back to life. In the evenings, they would walk through the grounds together, planning new additions, sharing ideas, building a future. One evening, as summer was fading into autumn, Damien led Maya to the rose garden. It was in full bloom, more beautiful than it had been in years thanks to Maya's care. My mother would have loved what you've done here, Damien said, looking around at the riot of colors. She always said gardens were like people. They need freedom to grow in their own way, but also support to help them thrive. Maya smiled. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. Damien took Maya's hands in his. She also said that when you find someone who makes you feel truly alive, you should never let them go. Maya's heart began to race as Damien reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. One last note, he said softly, handing it to her. With trembling fingers, Maya opened it. Inside was not a letter, but a simple question. Will you marry me? She looked up to find Damien on one knee before her, holding a ring, a simple diamond surrounded by tiny emeralds, the color of new leaves. Maya Sinclair, he said, his voice full of emotion, you walked into my life and cleaned more than just my house. You cleaned away the dust covering my heart. You taught me how to be honest, how to be brave, how to love without hiding. Will you marry me? Tears filled Maya's eyes. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. Damien slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her amid the roses she had tended so carefully. Later, as they sat on a bench in the garden making plans for their future, Maya thought about the journey that had brought them here, from anonymous notes to open hearts, from secrets to truth, from loneliness to love. What are you thinking about? Damien asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Maya smiled and leaned her head against his shoulder. I was thinking about that first note you left me, about how you saw me smile at the sunlight. It changed everything, Damien said. That moment. Yes, Maya agreed. It did. As the sun set over the Caldwell estate, casting golden light across the gardens, Maya and Damien sat hand in hand, no longer the maid and the master, but simply two people who had found in each other the courage to begin again. The ink-stained envelopes that had once carried their secret words were gone now, replaced by spoken promises and shared dreams, and in the mansion that had once felt so empty, a new story was beginning, one built not on lies and loneliness, but on truth and love. Maya looked up at Damien, at the warmth in his eyes as he gazed back at her, and knew that sometimes the most unlikely beginnings led to the most beautiful endings. And this was just their beginning.